Hey guys, welcome. My name is Adam, and in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you the complete guide to letting go of attachment. This teaching here is really going to help you to live a much happier and more fulfilled life where you feel free, you feel like your heart is full of love, and you just really feel deeply connected to life. Because the Buddha himself said that the root cause of all of your suffering in life, all of your lack, your fear, your frustration, all of the problems in your life stem from egotistical attachment, or what the Buddha called clinging. So attachment is the opposite of letting go. And we're going to talk about what is attachment, how does it work, where does it come from, and also some techniques and strategies to practice letting go. This is going to help you live a much happier and free and just more fulfilled life. So what is attachment? Attachment is natural. Every single being, every single organic being on Earth is attached to surviving. So attachment really comes from the need to survive as an organism. So as an organism, we need to be safe. We need to avoid pain and suffering and potential threats to our health. And we also need to chase after food, pleasure, things that make us feel good. So the root cause of attachment has to do with surviving as a separate self. And this is a very deep topic because surviving as a separate self isn't just about surviving as a biological organism, but it also is about surviving as a conceptual self. So the ego is more than just a physical body. The ego, which is you, your sense of self, your identity, is a concept. And it's actually almost like a spider web. It's a spider web of interconnected beliefs, habit patterns, energetic structures in your body. So the ego is more than just an idea, and it's more than just your body, but it's really an interconnected mesh, almost like a spider web of patterns, habits, and attachments, clinging. And this comes from conditioning. So when you're very, very young, your ego structure has not intact. So when you're 6 months old, you don't have a strong sense of self. But as you are conditioned by life, by your culture, your family, and just by life itself, as a child, when you, for example, put your hand on something that's hot, let's say you touch a hot stove, immediately you're going to feel pain, you're going to rip your hand back. And then this is going to condition you to always be afraid of touching a hot stove, for example. And this is very helpful for your survival. Your brain needs to know which things are going to cause me pain and suffering and which things are going to give me pleasure. So another example of conditioning is if you eat an ice cream cone and you're 4 years old, the first ice cream you've ever had in your entire life, and you like it, lights up all your serotonin and dopamine in your brain, you like the ice cream, now you're going to want the ice cream again. Because the next time the ice cream truck comes by, you hear the song playing, and you remember the last time you heard that song, you got a tasty ice cream and you really liked it. So every single time you hear that song playing, it kind of triggers a craving. And then you're going to want that ice cream. Your body and your tongue really likes the way it tastes. So this is basic conditioning. You can learn this in psychology, just basic Pavlovian conditioning. There was an experiment that the psychologist Pavlov had a dog, and whenever he would ring a bell, he would feed the dog. And they did this experiment where they would ring a bell and feed the dog. They'd ring a bell and feed the dog. And after a while, they could ring the bell and the dog would expect a meal. The dog would actually start salivating because the dog was conditioned to react to that bell. And this was a very simple experiment, but in your life, you are literally a walking ball of conditioning. This is what it means to live on autopilot. This is what it means to be lost in the dream of life, where you're constantly being pulled around by your attachments to chasing after pleasure, grabbing that ice cream cone, and also avoiding pain, avoiding hot stoves. And it's not just ice cream and hot stoves. This is literally everything in your life. This is the process of how you build up an ego structure, and your whole life, if you're not conscious and you don't eventually get into spirituality and learn how to deconstruct these habit patterns and this conditioning, what happens is this starts to run your entire life. And you spend your entire life replaying the old patterns over and over again. And this can be very frustrating. It's very toxic in a lot of cases. Many people have childhood trauma where, for example, so for me, I remember I was really awkward talking to girls, and whenever I would go talk to a girl that I liked, it would always end up blowing up in my face. I would get embarrassed. Other people would make fun of me. I would make a fool of myself. So for the rest of my life, until I started getting into meditation and really self-reflecting, I was just reliving the same trauma where every single time I'd go up to a pretty girl, I'd be extremely embarrassed. I'd be afraid, and this would be very frustrating for me and cause me suffering. So one example of being attached to life, where you're actually clinging to life, you're in a state of fear, in a state of ego consciousness, in a state of lack. One example would be being very picky with the food that you eat. Maybe you're like this, maybe you know someone who's like this, but in general, people who are very picky about the food that they eat, they have high levels of attachment in their life in general. So if you're eating a pizza, for example, you go to a restaurant and the pizza comes out and there's mushrooms and peppers on the pizza. Normally, what I've trained myself to do is basically whatever food is served to me, I eat it, because that helps me to let go of attachment. But many people I see are, they'll pick the stuff that they don't like off of the pizza. They'll say, ew, I don't like mushrooms. And they'll make it this whole big deal. And really what this is coming from is conditioning. You had mushrooms one time, maybe like 10 years ago when you were a child, and then you didn't like the way they taste. So now for the rest of your life, you have this story. Oh, I don't like mushrooms. And this actually becomes a part of your identity. It's like a story that becomes rigid and it locks in, and it becomes very difficult to change because it's actually part of your identity. I'm someone who doesn't like mushrooms. So now when this person is served mushrooms at the restaurant, it's almost like a life or death experience. If I say, hey man, just eat the frickin' mushrooms. They're good. This is a 5-star Italian restaurant. They wouldn't serve you food that tastes bad. Sure, maybe you aren't familiar with that taste. Maybe that's not your favorite taste in the world, but still eat it because it's just good to not be picky with life. Now, this might sound like a personal gripe that I have, but it's very true. You can tell a lot about a person based on how picky they are when they eat. It's good to be open. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to eat food that's unhealthy for you. If you are served a hamburger with cheese and you don't want it because it's going to hurt your stomach and it's going to ruin your energy, that's completely different. So it's all right to be picky in a sense of, oh wow, there's a giant fucking spider there. Holy shit, it's like the size of my hand. Okay, sorry guys. I'll let it go. It's okay to be picky if it's for a health reason, but you just really want to be aware of your attachment to life. And every once in a while, you want to break up your attachment by doing something that you would never do. So if you would never eat pickles, for example, just eat some pickles next time with your lunch, just to break up this habit pattern. Because what causes suffering in your life is attachment. And attachment comes from having a rigid ego, being very stuck in your ways, where you're trying to hold on to old ways of living and old ways of being. And what happens is you're fighting against the natural flow of life. Life is constantly changing. So when you're trying to control and make life fit into your little box, then it's not going to work. You're going to suffer because life is changing and you're fighting against the natural flow of life by trying to keep it the same and by holding on to your old patterns. All right, so another example of attachment is stinginess. Being very stingy with your money. When you walk by a homeless person on the street, you don't even want to give them $1 because you are afraid that if you give them $1, then you're not going to have enough money to buy your Starbucks. So yeah, we don't have to give to every single homeless person that you walk by, but just watch where you're being stingy in your life. Now, this could be with your money. This could also be with your breathing as well. Are you very tight with your breathing, or are you generous? So the opposite of stinginess is generosity. This is one of the core pillars of all religions. Generosity, freely giving of yourself and being open and loose. So allow your belly to be open. Be generous with your breath. Be generous with your body movements. If you see the way the trees move, they're very loose and they're very generous in the way that they allow themselves to bend and move. Be like a tree. Don't be rigid and tight like a rock. Allow your body to actually flow when you move. One thing that helps me a lot with this is doing body work, which I have a whole video about. You can check that out. But just relax your body, be aware of your body, be loose. Don't be stingy. And notice, all attachment is rooted in fear. And like the Upanishads said, where there is other, there is fear. So fundamentally, when you forget your true nature as God, when you realize that it's all good here, see, the predicament of being human is that we're trying to balance our egotistical survival in the relative world, but also remembering that we are absolutely the source of existence and we are God. So we're trying to balance these two things. Now, remembering ultimately that everything is all good. You don't have to worry about even dying. So the ultimate fear that all humans have, that all beings have, the ultimate fear of being a separate being is death. That's the core fear that's at the root of all fears. But I talked about in another video that if you can visualize your death in maybe meditation, you actually visualize yourself dying and you can face death. This is something that you can do on a meditation retreat, just by being alone. If you spend a few days alone in a room with no entertainment, no cell phone, no Netflix, no tasty food, just alone in a room for 3 days, no friends to talk to, you will come face to face with your death very quickly. And the more you can face that, the more you can lean into the fundamental emptiness of life. And most people are running away from the emptiness of life, trying to avoid contemplating, trying to avoid thinking about the nature of existence, about what is life, what is reality, what does it mean to be a human being. These questions are uncomfortable for many people to explore. But if you can become comfortable exploring these existential questions directly, not just as philosophy that's like, you know, in your mind, reading books, watching videos and thinking about it, but if you can actually, like, in your heart, if you can genuinely care about asking these existential questions and just being curious about life, this is called being a sage or a mystic, then you're actually going to be a lot better equipped to live life. Because when you're connected to being, you're connected to your death, you're connected to the fact of life. You're not lost in autopilot, living out old conditioning, but you're actually awake and aware, and you're not being controlled by the mind, because the mind is just like momentum. It's just has all the momentum and karma of all of your past conditioning, the way that you were raised. And then there's also conditioning that comes not just from your personal life, but also from the entire history of the species and also the entire history of existence. So it's not like only you, as you know, however old you are. I'm 22, so it's not like I've only been conditioned for 22 years. My consciousness has been conditioned for millions of years, billions of years. Since the beginning of the universe, there's conditioning. And the nature of the ego is to always want to chase after pleasure and to avoid pain. This is very deep. This isn't like a little thing to let go of, which is why I get frustrated when I see people talking about letting go. It's like, all you have to do is just let go, and then your life will be awesome. Yeah, that's true, but there's many different layers of letting go, because there's many different layers of attachment. So there's surface level attachments, like eating mushrooms on your pizza. You don't like having mushrooms, so you know, that's like such an easy thing to let go of. Okay, I'll just try a new food today. But then there's another layer underneath that, like being attached to having other people like you, right? Being attached to validation from other people. But then there's another layer even below that, like being attached to holding tension in your body, because fundamentally you're afraid of life. You always feel like you need to protect yourself. This is actually held as tension in your body. This comes from past trauma. It's good to let go of that so that you can open yourself up to the flow of life and actually change with life instead of fighting against life by being rigid and holding trauma and tension in your body. And then that's another layer of attachment, but then there's an even deeper layer of attachment, which is like fundamentally being attached to existing, to your identity. Who do you think you are, right? If I come and I start fiddling around with your identity and I start asking you existential questions that make you question what you even think you are as a being, when I question your taste in pizza, you say, you get a little bit frustrated, but you let it go. But what if I start questioning your fundamental beliefs about reality? What do you think reality even is? See, now this is when we start to uncover really deep levels of attachment. When people have ideological debates like politics, religion, how to raise your children, even COVID, abortion, these kinds of like heated topics, they bring to the surface all kinds of attachment that the human being has. And all of these topics have to do, what do they have in common? They have to do with your selfish survival. These are all topics that are very close to home. Your religion, your political view, all of this has to do with your survival. So attachment is coming from egotistical fear that reality's not gonna work out in your favor according to your biases and preferences. And you can uncover a lot of attachment in people by having ideology. So that's one way that we hold a lot of attachment, is in our beliefs about the world, what we think is good in the world and what we think is evil, right? Most people waste their entire lives just squabbling about their ideological attachments. Also, craving is another example of attachment. When you're really craving a cigarette. I really need a cigarette right now. That's another example. So what do we do about attachment, and how do we let go of it? Now, letting go of attachment is kind of a tricky topic, because when I say letting go, you might assume that I mean to get rid of it. But letting go has nothing to do with getting rid of the thing. So if you have a craving for cigarettes, and I say let go of the craving, people think, oh, I'm gonna let go. Okay, so I need to get rid of the craving. I need to suppress it, or I need to ignore it or avoid it or sweep it under the rug. But letting go is actually about acceptance. So I want you to tattoo this in your mind. Letting go isn't about getting rid of the thing that you don't like, because that's not letting go, that's just more attachment. Real letting go is accepting and allowing the current state of reality to just be as it is. So letting go really isn't the best word. I prefer letting be. Letting be is actually the best way to let go. So step one, how to let go. So any experience that arises, obviously when there's a negative experience, you want to let go of it, right? But then when there's a positive experience, you don't want to let go of that. You want to cling on to that and hold on. So if I burn your ass with a lighter, right, and I singe your ass hairs, you're like, oh, I'm gonna let go of that, right? That's an uncomfortable feeling. I want to let go of that. But when you're swimming in the ocean in Costa Rica, you don't even think about letting go. So that already kind of illustrates the kind of egotistical preferences that you have. So in order to let go properly, any experience that is here, you just allow it to be here without trying to change it. Now, this is easier said than done. This is why meditation practice is so essential, because what meditation is just for 20 minutes a day or longer, you're just sitting and being open to experience. And you're going to notice that you have plenty of attachments. So when I talk about letting go of attachment, you might be meditating and you might notice how attached you are to fantasizing about sex, or how attached you are to craving food. So you notice your attachments, and then you think, well, Adam said that attachment is bad and that I need to let go of attachment because attachment is the root cause of suffering. So the true way to let go of attachment is to let attachment be there, and just to kind of witness the attachment without reacting to it. When you can witness any part of reality with neutrality, without reacting to it, then that part of reality will just kind of dissolve. And you can notice this in your direct experience if you do meditation. Sometimes when I meditate, there will be like a strong pain in my knee. So when I was in Thailand and I was still learning how to meditate properly, I would try and fight against the pain in my knee. I'd fight against, I'd literally tense my body away from the pain. You can feel this. So after thousands of hours, eventually I learned how to let the pain be there and not react to it. Not say, oh, there's pain, it's bad. That's normal, that's how you've been conditioned to act. Instead of doing what you normally do, which is avoid pain, instead just stay neutral. It's just a feeling. So when you stay neutral, you realize the pain actually doesn't even hurt. It only hurts when you resist it. If you don't resist the pain, you open up through it, it just dissolves, changes into something else. It'll change form. It might change into pleasure. It might change into a different type of pain, but it'll dissolve. So the key, step one, open up to reality and practice this. This is a muscle. You can't just open up one time only when you're in an uncomfortable situation. Now I'm going to practice letting go. That's a great time to practice letting go, when you're in an uncomfortable situation. But it's good to practice letting go even when you're not in an uncomfortable situation, even if you're in a neutral or positive situation. So when you're walking around your house and you're going to the bathroom, that's a great time to practice letting go. Let go of your stomach. Let go of your shoulders. Let go of your thoughts, your cravings. Like what are you doing? So I notice myself a lot of time when I'm just walking around my house, a lot of time I notice there's like a subtle energy where I'm in a rush for some reason. I don't know where I think I'm going. I have to go make a video. I have to go do this thing. But sometimes you just feel like you're in a rush in life. So letting go of being in a rush is a great way to let go. Slowing down. So number two is just let the thing be there. So if you want to let go, face it, open up to it, let it be there, accept it, don't fight against it. Now, it's easy to say this, but how do we do this? How do we actually do this? Well, I do have a free training where the link in the description. The way you do it is by practicing meditation. You don't have to use my training, but I put a lot of love into that one. A lot of people really like it. That's the Vipassana meditation training, where I show you how to face experience directly. This is really the key skill of letting go. So even when we talk about letting go, it sounds like we're like dropping something, or letting go almost sounds like something you have to do. Like, Adam, tell me how to let go. But letting go is it's not really about letting go. It's more about facing reality with neutrality and being open to all experience. So what we're letting go of is the tendency to resist experience. That's what we're letting go of. And it's funny because we're not even really letting go of the tendency to resist experience. We're allowing, so if you're resisting experience, you might say, oh, I need to let go of my resistance. But no, you don't even have to let go of your resistance. You can let the resistance be. And just letting be is letting go. Now, another way you can practice letting go is to visualize the worst case scenario. So I talked a little bit about visualizing death, because death is the core fear that you have. So if you can kind of face your death and overcome that, then you'll notice on the other side of death is just pure bliss and love, because there's nothing to worry about anymore if you can accept your death. So from the example where I was saying my mom was sleeping at the cottage and there was a spider in her room, what she could have done, what I've done to let go of this fear of sleeping with bugs in my room, is to visualize what's the worst case scenario that'll happen here. Well, worst case, this spider will probably just crawl around on my arm or on my face. That's really the worst case, is that the spider crawls on my face and starts tickling my nose with its legs, and maybe, you know, crawls in my mouth just to see what's going on in there. So that's like the worst case scenario, right? In that scenario, you visualize it. So actually imagine there's a spider crawling around, exploring your face. What's he doing? He's not really doing anything. Maybe he's gonna make a nest in my beard. Maybe he's gonna lay eggs in there. Worst case scenario, that's what's gonna happen. All I do is just wake up in the morning, wash my beard, and then that's it. So I really don't have to be afraid. Realistically, the spider's not gonna crawl in my mouth and lay eggs in my beard. He's probably just gonna walk over my face. That's like the worst thing that's gonna happen. Plus, I'll be asleep, so I won't even notice it. So this is just one example of how can you get to the worst case scenario. So if you're really attached to giving a presentation at work or at school, you have to give a PowerPoint presentation, everyone's gonna be watching you, you're afraid of messing up. So visualize the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is that my computer doesn't work, my PowerPoint projector completely breaks, I forget all the words that I needed to say, and then I start sweating, and then I cough, and I completely make a fool of myself, and then everyone laughs at me. So the worst case scenario that's realistically going to happen is that the other people in the room are going to feel a little bit awkward. You're going to maybe embarrass yourself a little bit, but if you let go of that, you realize even if I embarrass myself, that's not really a big deal. I can try again next time. It's not a huge deal. If I mess it up, okay, it's all right. Not everything in life needs to be perfect. Notice that if I mess up the meeting, I mess up the presentation, but I'm cool about it. I'm not attached and afraid to messing up. Even if I mess up, I'm chill about it. Then the other people will be chill about it too, because I've already let go of the worst case scenario. Same with making a video. A few times during this video, people just like walked by me and I had to pause the video and make a cut. I would have preferred not to do that, but what am I gonna do? Worst case scenario, my thought gets interrupted, right? So letting go, visualize the worst case scenario, and that's all I have to say here. So to review, letting go is really about radically accepting reality, all parts of reality. And I tried to give you as many practical examples as I could, because letting go really is about all of life. This has practical ramifications in your business. Letting go of needing to make money actually makes you more money, because you're chill. You're relaxed. You don't need to make money, but you're secure. Same in your relationships as well. I don't need this person to make me happy. I already feel happy. I'm secure. Same with your health. I don't need this chocolate cake to make me happy. I'm good enough just eating salad and broccoli and vegetables. Right? So letting go has to do with letting go to neediness, letting go of attachment. Attachment comes from clinging, and it comes from unconscious conditioning. You've been conditioned to live basically as an animal. Chase pleasure, avoid pain. Right? But what's so awesome about being a human is that we have the potential to self-actualize, to grow beyond our just basic animalistic drives, where we're just constantly searching for entertainment and sex and food and social status. We can go beyond those lower drives. We can include them, not to repress them, say there's nothing wrong with sex and food and social status. So we're not repressing our lower drives. We're transcending and including our lower drives onto higher things like self-actualization. So when we let go of attachment, we can more fully express ourselves creatively, because I'm not worried about what other people think of me. I can go experience the beauty of nature because I'm not worried about these giant spiders that are walking around. I think a few of them crawled over my bare feet as I'm recording. I'm not attached to that. There's been mosquitoes biting me this entire video. But since I let go of that, I don't really care. Now I can just actually enjoy life properly. I might go walk in the river after this. Another thing about letting go of attachment is it just lets you experience life more fully. You let go of fear and you can actually experience love. So this is self-actualization. This is really what it means to be a human being, to be honest as well, letting go. If you're attached, you're going to lie and be dishonest. So being honest, being creative, like I said, being good, being kind, being just as well. Being independent, thinking for yourself, doing what you love, doing what you're passionate about. When you can let go of attachment, this is everything that holds you back in your life is your own attachment to the old patterns. You want to stay safe. You want to stay comfortable. You don't want to change. You just want everything to be in your comfort zone. But unfortunately, or fortunately actually, reality is always changing. So you can't fight against the changing reality. You need to build up your resilience to reality. You need to go with the change and be neutral in all situations and all circumstances. So when you believe in your own ability to remain neutral through meditation training and also awakening as well, when you increase your ability to remain neutral in all circumstances, your fear goes way down. And then fear is the opposite of love. So your love and bliss and happiness goes way up. And then you can enjoy life fully. All right, guys. So how to let go, face it, let it be there, accept it, and visualize worst case scenario. A bonus way to let go of attachment is to do body work. This is a body relaxation practice that I made a whole video about right here called Introduction to Bodywork. Check that video out. It is essential. It's an essential letting go practice. I do it every single day, and it just completely helps me to realign my body and actually let go of the physical body tension. Because a lot of letting go has to do with actually just letting go of tension in your body. So the bodywork practice is extremely powerful. A lot of people have been liking it, so check that out. And otherwise, check out my free meditation training as well. That's gonna help you learn how to be aware, right? I always link that training because it's awesome. I teach you one of the best meditation practices that exist that I've been doing for years. It's very powerful. And otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video. Hope you guys like this one, and take care.